Hey everyone, and welcome to another video. Tonight we have 2 hours of horror stories, 10 stories in total. I hope you all enjoy them. Really quick, I wanted to say thank you for 122,000 subscribers. The channel is definitely hitting a growth spurt at the moment, and I am very, very appreciative of it. I'll try not to spin too much of these intros just repeatedly saying thank you. I really want you all to know that I appreciate it so much. It's really cool seeing things coming back around. Anyways, I hope that you enjoy these stories. I know that most of you use these videos to fall asleep, but I still want them to be good stories, so I've selected the best ones that I could find. If you do enjoy this video, please be sure to drop a like rating. It is the best way to help out the channel. Subscribing if you are new is also very much appreciated. I post content just like this all the time. If you really want to go above and beyond, dropping a comment would be really nice. And if you really, really wanted to go above and beyond, just tell a friend about the channel. Anyways, sit back, do whatever it is that you do to relax. Enjoy these horror stories right after the ad break after this intro. There won't be any more ad breaks after that one. And as always, I hope you all have a great night. My family doesn't age like other people. My grandmother was 98 when she passed, but she looked 65, maybe younger. My great-uncle is 102 and still chops his own firewood. We've always credited it to good genes, and our one sacred tradition, the renewal stew, served at every major family gathering. It was a rich, dark, savory stew that made you feel warm from the inside out, full of life. When Grandma Rose died, I was the one who inherited the old family farmhouse. Tucked away in her study, I finally found it, the original handwritten recipe book, bound in cracked leather. I felt a thrill like I was finally being let in on the secret. I opened it to the page for the renewal stew. It was mostly blank. There were no ingredients listed for the stew itself, only 2 cryptic notes in my great-great-grandmother's spidery script. For the broth, see the cellar instructions. For the seasoning, see the attic instructions. The cellar was damp and smelled of earth. Behind a stack of old canning jars, I found a loose stone in the wall. Pulling it revealed a dark, hidden chamber. Inside, arranged in neat rows, were a dozen large, unglazed clay pots filled with a dark, peaty soil. A thick, pale, gnarled root snaked out of the soil in each pot, looking disturbingly like a human hand. A dusty journal sat on a small table. The entries, dating back to the 1800s, describe the process. When a member of our family dies, they aren't buried or cremated. They are planted. Their bodies are prepared with a special mixture of herbs and laid to rest in these pots. Over the years, the soil and the body produce a life root. This root is harvested, boiled for 3 days, and becomes the broth for the renewal stew. I felt a wave of nausea. We weren't just eating stew. We were consuming the concentrated essence of our dead ancestors. Shaking, I went to the attic. In a locked trunk, I found a collection of small, ornate silver boxes, each engraved with the name of a living family member. I found my own, my name freshly engraved. Inside each box was a small, sharp obsidian knife. Another journal explained the final step. The seasoning. It wasn't a spice. At each gathering, every family member present must make a living contribution to the stew. A few drops of blood, a sliver of fingernail, a tear cried directly into the pot. This offering of the living is what awakens the ancestral broth. I slammed the book shut, my hands trembling. It was a grotesque, cannibalistic ritual. I vowed I would never participate. The next major gathering was for the autumn equinox. I made an excuse not to go, claiming I had the flu. I felt a sense of righteous defiance. A week later, my mother called, her voice thin and weak. "Your Aunt Carol isn't doing well." she said. She's had a sudden decline. I drove to my aunt's house. The woman who opened the door was a stranger. She looked 80 years old, her skin thin and translucent like parchment, her hair patchy and white. But it was Aunt Carol. She was only 58. She looked at me, her eyes wide with a desperate, hungry light. "You didn't come," she rasped, her hand gripping my arm with surprising strength. Her fingernails were cracked and yellow. "The stew, it wasn't strong enough. It's always weaker when someone is missing." I finally understood. We don't have good genes. We have a curse. A rapid, horrifying decay that is constantly trying to claim us. The stew isn't a fountain of youth. It's the only thing that holds the rot at bay. We aren't living long lives. We are desperately, grotesquely staving off an accelerated death. The winter solstice is next month. My mother called again yesterday. She told me my great-uncle's hands are so stiff he can no longer hold an axe. She told me she found a new gray hair, and when she plucked it, a small patch of skin came with it. Then she asked if I would be coming home for the solstice. Her voice was casual, but the question hung in the air, heavy and raw. They need me. They need my contribution. I'm looking at the small silver box with my name on it. The little black knife sits inside, cool and sharp. I have a choice. I can go, participate in this stomach-churning ritual, and feed the curse to keep my family looking young and vibrant while I know the horrifying truth. Or I can stay here, clean and pure, and watch them all fall apart, knowing that the same rot is flowing through my own veins, waiting for its turn. For the past week, something's been off with my mom. She's still doing all the usual things, making her black coffee first thing in the morning, tending the roses in the backyard that she refuses to let die, even though it's August and the heat's brutal. She still calls me sweetheart, still leaves post-its with gentle reminders to eat, hydrate, sleep. But she won't look me in the eyes anymore. Not for more than a second or two. I caught her watching me last night from the hallway mirror. I was sitting on the couch, scrolling on my phone, and I just felt it. That kind of prickling heat behind your neck, like someone's watching. I looked up and there she was standing stiffly behind the corner, peering in like she was studying something. Or someone. When our eyes met, she froze. Then she forced a smile. "You okay, honey?" I nodded. She disappeared down the hallway like nothing happened. But I know she was watching. This morning she left a slice of toast on the kitchen table for me, same as always. But there was no butter, no jelly, not even a napkin. It was just dry. I asked her if everything was all right. She hesitated. Of course, why wouldn't it be? I shrugged. You just seem distant lately. She looked at me for a long time. Her fingers were tight around the coffee mug. Then she said slowly, "Sometimes people change. And sometimes they think no one will notice." I tried to laugh it off, but my chest felt hollow. I didn't eat the toast. It's not just the weird glances or the strange things she says. She started locking her bedroom door at night. She never used to do that. And I swear one night I heard her whispering behind it, like prayers or warnings. This morning I woke up and found her in the living room, going through old photo albums. She didn't even flinch when I walked in. "Looking for something?" I asked. She stared down at a photo of us from years ago. Me, at least. I think it's me smiling in front of a birthday cake, frosting on my chin. Her eyes flicked up to my face, then back to the photo. Her hands were trembling. "You used to have a mole," she whispered. I blinked. What? On your left cheek, she said, tapping the photo. Where is it? I touched my cheek. I guess it faded. Her lips pressed into a tight line. Moles don't fade. I couldn't think of anything to say. Just stood there like an idiot. Tonight she left a knife under her pillow. I saw it when I walked past her room. The door was cracked open and she was pretending to sleep, but I saw her fingers curled tight around the blanket, like she was bracing for something. I think she's afraid of me. And the thing is, I've been having dreams. Dreams of things that don't make sense. I hear echoes. I see a forest. Wet leaves. I even smell smoke. And the face, my face, staring at me with wide, terrified eyes as I reached out for him, as I stepped into my skin. I start to question myself. What am I? Am I really who I am? Then one night I go to the bathroom and look in the mirror and see all the imperfections, all the mistakes. When I see it, I see what my mom sees. I'm not her son, and Mom knows it. They say if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life. I don't love what I do. Not exactly. But I was born for it, and I'm very, very good at it. It's not a 9 to 5. There's no clocking in, no coffee breaks, no PTO. You don't apply for this kind of job. It finds you. And the first thing they tell you, the very first thing, is never tell anyone what you do. Not your spouse, not your family, not your priest. Not even yourself if you can help it. But lately it's been getting harder to ignore. The weight of it, the screams of it. So here I am, telling you. I guess the easiest way to explain it is this. I clean up after things, unnatural things. You know when a family just disappears from their home? Car still in the driveway, dinner half eaten, no signs of struggle, just gone? That's when I get a call. Or when some hikers go off trail and are found days later, faces stretched in terror, skin blistered like it aged 100 years overnight. That's me too. But I'm not law enforcement, not military, not some paranormal investigator with a podcast and a night vision camera. I don't ask questions. I don't take notes. I remove blood, evidence, sometimes entire houses. And I do it well. My tools are custom. They don't have names, just serial codes. I've got solvents that melt bone, vacuums that erase the residue of fear, gloves that never stain. And then there's the black book. It's always waiting on my kitchen table in the morning. No knock, no call, just there. Heavy, smells like dirt and ozone. Inside is always the same. A name, a location, and a set of rules. Follow the rules. That's what keeps you alive. Let me give you an example. A few months ago, I was sent to a house in Oregon. A cabin, deep woods, no roads on Google Maps. The black book said, Rule 1, do not look in the mirrors. Rule 2, remove the nursery wallpaper before dusk. Rule 3, if you hear crying from under the floorboards, leave immediately. I followed them. Mostly. I slipped. Glanced at a mirror by the front door just for a second. Saw something that wasn't me. It had my face, but the smile wasn't mine. The teeth weren't human. I covered it with a blanket and kept working. Didn't sleep for 3 days after that. But I got the job done. Place was gone by morning. Just dirt and fog where the cabin used to be. Sometimes it's worse. Sometimes they send me to places where the walls breathe, where clocks run backwards, where the wind whispers in dead languages. Last year there was a site, I can't say where, that required me to burn down a hotel that didn't technically exist. The black book said. Each room you enter will add another memory you never had. Burn it before you forget who you are. Took me 5 hours. By the time I lit the final match, I was almost convinced I had a wife named Clara and a baby girl named June. I don't. I double-checked. I think. The worst job I ever had? A basement in Kansas. Concrete walls, chains, blood thick as syrup on the floor. Nothing in the black book but one sentence. It is still hungry. Do not feed it anything you love. I almost failed that one. Dropped my wallet without noticing. Had a photo of my sister in it. I left the house shaking. When I checked my wallet in the car, the photo was gone. In its place was a scrap of flesh. Still beating. Some days I wonder who they are. The ones who leave the book. The ones who know where the horrors are. The ones who created the rules. Are they protecting us, or just covering their tracks? Am I the good guy in all this, or just another cog in a much darker machine? I try not to ask. The black book doesn't like it when you ask. I tried once, left a note inside. Who are you? Next morning, I woke up with my own handwriting carved into my arm. Cleaner, clean thyself. I bled for hours. So why am I telling you this now? Well, because this morning, for the first time in over a decade, the black book didn't show up. Instead, there was an envelope, my name written in red, no return address, inside a photo of me, sleeping. And on the back, just one rule: do not run. We already know where you'll go. I have a very special job. But I think I just became the next mess to clean up. And I don't think anyone's coming to save me. There's a reason we're scared of the dark. The familiar discomfort when you're driving alone at night, even if you don't see anyone on the road around you. It's instinct. A warning built into your bones. Because there are things out there, beings we can't explain. They don't show up on camera. They don't care about your pepper spray. They follow rules. Ancient ones. Rituals, maybe. I don't know where they come from or who made them, but I've learned this much. If you follow the rules, they'll leave you alone. I just never thought I'd experience something like that behind the wheel of a damn cab. People think being a rideshare driver is simple, and they're right, for the most part. You drive. You talk if they want to talk, you drop them off, you get paid. No real boss breathing down your neck, no office politics, no deadlines. Just the road, your car, and a playlist long enough to keep you entertained between rides. That's why I started doing it in the first place. After I left my old job, I didn't want to deal with people anymore. Not really. I'd been a mechanic for 20 years, ran my own shop until my knees gave out and my business went to crap. The rideshare apps came at the right time. I didn't have to smile if I didn't want to. I didn't have to fix anybody's problems. Just get them where they're going. During the day, it's easy. College kids heading to class, nurses pulling doubles, grocery store runs for people without cars. Honest, quiet work. Sometimes I'd even enjoy the small talk. I liked hearing about their lives. Felt like I was doing something good. Even if it was just 5 stars and a quiet thanks. But at night, things change. The air gets heavy. The people get strange. I remember when I first heard about the rules of the road after sundown. Not guidelines, not suggestions. Rules. They show up on the app the second the sun begins to set. And if you break one, well, let's just say you don't want to find out what happens. I'm sure this is very confusing to hear for the first time, so let me explain. Every night shift starts the same. Right after sunset, the app buzzes and emits a strange sound. Not a standard chirp a notification makes. Something dull and stringy, like a warning siren before a storm. On a much smaller scale, of course. The screen goes black just before a message appears in blocky text. Night shift protocol. Active between sunset and sunrise. 1. Do not look at passengers directly. Use the rearview mirror if you must. 2. Do not accept payment greater than the cab fare. Never take gifts. 3. Only process one ride at a time. Never allow multiple passengers in your car. 4. Make sure your final passenger is dropped off before sunrise. I review them every time, even though I've got them memorized. I don't know if the app updates them or if something darker is watching to make sure I read them. Either way, I never skip that screen. At least I don't anymore. I made the mistake of ignoring the rules once, and that was one time too many. I never really was a superstitious man. Back when I started doing nights, I laughed. Rules like these felt like a joke. Some edgy tech campaign or something. The kind of stuff that gets passed around on Halloween to show they're being hip and festive. But the thing is, these rules, they're the real deal. The consequences are even more real. I learned that the hard way. It started with something small, just a guy who insisted on paying double. He said he appreciated my service, said I looked tired and he wanted to bless me. He pulled out a crisp 100 and set it gently on the center console. I told him no. He insisted. I told him again. He smiled and slipped it into the cup holder. It's yours either way, man. I didn't touch it. Just left it there until he was gone. I mean, what's the harm? The guy looked unremarkable after all. A middle-aged gentleman with slicked back, salt and pepper hair. Reading glasses, t-shirt, and a vest. Gave me easygoing surfer vibes. Then I looked up in the mirror. He was still there. I heard him leave, heard the door shut behind him and saw him disappear into the dark, but he was there, grinning. His eyes were all black. He mouthed something, but the words didn't match the movement, like a broken puppet trying to whisper a prayer. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I reached back, heart pounding. The seat was empty. He was nowhere to be found. Except for the mirror, he stayed there for the rest of the drive, just smiling, chatting away. I parked my cab in the farthest corner of my apartment's lot, locked the doors, and went inside. That $100 bill stayed exactly where it was, untouched, humming with some quiet, invisible pressure. I could feel its presence everywhere I went. Something was trying to make me go back for it. Spend it, maybe. I wasn't sure. But I needed help to make it go away. I contacted support through the app. There's no helpline, no human name, just a form with one question. Describe your incident. I typed everything. The passenger, the tip, the mirror. I waited. Felt so silly. 24 hours later, I got a reply. Protocol breach acknowledged. Remedial steps required before shift may resume. Burn the foreign currency. Avoid seafood for 2 full days. Thanks for contacting technical support. That was it. No apology, no explanation, just instructions. I picked up the $100 bill like it was a loaded firearm and was surprised by the weight of it. I went out to the alley behind my complex and set it on fire in a soup can. The flames hissed green for a moment, then evaporated. It didn't smell like money burning. It smelled like salt and old fish. I skipped sushi that week. Thankfully, I am not much of a fish guy. By the 3rd night, the app let me log in again, and like nothing ever happened, the rides returned. It has been pretty smooth sailing ever since. Not every shift is terrifying, some are just weird. Like the woman in the bright yellow dress who got in without saying a word and only whispered her destination. The bog. Or the man who didn't blink, stared straight ahead, and screamed every time we passed a fire hydrant. The weirdest ride I ever gave was from last November. It was around 3:12 a.m., the dead stretch of time where the world feels empty. I was parked near the outskirts of town, engine idling, watching a moth dive repeatedly into the windshield. A ping came through. There was no address, just coordinates. I almost declined. Nobody lives way out there. It's all farmland and old sheds. But I was behind on rent, and I was pretty good at following the rules at this point. The profile picture was blank. Name just said M. Fine, I accepted. As I approached the pickup spot, my headlights hit something standing in the middle of the road. A man. No, a figure. Very still, dressed in old-fashioned clothes. Black hat, long coat, hands folded in front of him like he was at a funeral. I stopped. He didn't move. I glanced at the app. The pin was directly on him. Against my better judgment, I rolled down the window a few inches. Hey, you M? The figure nodded once. I unlocked the doors and pulled up the rules panel on the app on my phone. Same rules as always. No change. I read over the first one for good measure. Do not look at passengers directly. Use the rearview mirror if you must. Right. He opened the back door and slid in. Didn't speak, just sat there, the seat creaking under his weight. I pulled away from the shoulder and merged back onto the main road. The silence was suffocating. I snuck a glance into the rearview mirror. At first I saw nothing. Then the mirror fogged up, as if someone had breathed on it from the inside. I wiped away the condensation with my thumb and nearly jumped in my seat at what was revealed beneath. The figure in the back seat wasn't looking at me. It was holding something. A large postcard pressed flat against its face like a mask. Long fingers curled around the edges. Fingers with nails so long and yellow they looked rotted. Just the sight of them sent a cold wave down my spine. I leaned forward just slightly, enough to make out the writing. 2 words, scrawled across the card in what looked like red ink. Or blood. I couldn't tell. Just drive, it said. I didn't ask questions. I drove. For 40 minutes, we cruised past silent fields, dead gas stations, and stretches of road I swear I'd never seen on any map. I didn't get a destination update. No timer, just me, the road, and whatever was sitting behind me. The silence felt thicker than usual. The only sound was the low hum of the engine and the occasional creak of the frame, like the car itself felt uneasy. I kept checking the rear view, but the mirror kept fogging up, over and over. I wiped it clean with the side of my hand, each time revealing the same thing. He was closer. At first he was sitting upright, stiff, almost mannequin-like. Next time he was leaning slightly forward. Then his knees were nearly touching the back of my seat. His hat was old and stained, the brim tipped just low enough to hide most of his face. Torn in one corner, frayed like it had been dragged through gravel. I couldn't see his eyes, but I could feel them, like heat on the back of my neck. A cold sweat was forming along my forehead. I didn't know what to do. No name, no timer, no destination. That had never happened before. I gripped the wheel tighter and kept driving, heart pounding louder than the tires on the asphalt. What do I do if he doesn't leave? What if he just sits there until the sun comes up? Something bad would happen. I didn't know what exactly, but I knew the rules. This wasn't just another creepy fare. At exactly 4 a.m., he tapped the window twice. I pulled over. Before I could say a word, the door creaked open and slammed shut. I checked the mirror. Fog gone. Seat empty. Except for something left behind. There was a small envelope with one of those fancy wax seals. Inside was a bundle of tattered cash wrapped in a classy red bow. Not a cent over the fare. Thank God. I set it aside and sat there for a while just breathing. The car was finally quiet. Still. That night feels like it happened ages ago. I'm more seasoned now. Passengers without destinations? Common occurrence these days. Took me a while to realize they're not chasing a place. They're chasing a feeling, a reaction. They're insatiable like that. But I've learned a lot since then. I know better than to feed their desires. You give them the cold shoulder long enough and eventually, they leave. These days, I'm more composed. Like a prison warden ferrying rowdy inmates. I even bought a pistol. It sits in the glove department, mostly idle. But if someone in the back gets bold, starts creeping too close, a little flash of the barrel is usually enough. They growl, they curse, slam the door behind them, cab fare left on the seat, not a cent overpaid. I don't bother being gentle, it's not like they can tip me, but tonight I am feeling a bit more anxious than usual. It isn't because of the job. Nope. Supernatural cab passengers are a walk in the park compared to what I have in store tomorrow. My son's getting married. I haven't been part of his life. Not really. That was my fault. I kept my distance after the divorce, told myself he'd be better off without me hovering around. No awkward visits, no clumsy father-son talks. Just space. But when the invitation came, I cried. I just sat on the couch clutching that envelope and cried like I hadn't in years. There's no way I was missing it. I've missed too much already. I should be resting right now, getting ready for the big day, but I needed to calm my nerves. For some odd reason, this job does it for me. Midnight hits, the app dings. First ride of the night. I take a deep breath and swipe to accept. Gotta focus. Just get through the shift. Then it's straight to the hotel, change into the suit, and head to the ceremony. The guy who gets in looks normal. Collared shirt, dark jeans, clean cut. He slides into the back seat without a word at first. I start driving. A few blocks in, he speaks up. Big night? I nod. Yeah. My son's getting married tomorrow. Oh, that's great. What's his name? I hesitate. James. He repeats it real slow. James. Strong name. What time's the wedding? 2, I say, eyes fixed on the road. He grins. That's wonderful. You must be proud. I give a tight smile but don't answer. Something about the way he's asking all this makes me uneasy. It's not the questions. People make small talk all the time. It's the way he leans in when he speaks, like he already knows the answers, like he's confirming something. We pull up to his drop-off. He thanks me, steps out, just stands there on the curb, staring through the rear window. I look straight ahead and pretend not to notice. After a few seconds, he disappears into the dark. I sit there in silence, hands still on the wheel. That was strange, even stranger than usual. Then it hits me. The rules. I forgot to check the rules tonight. I pulled up the app and swiped to the rules section. Crap. There's a new rule. Don't talk to the passengers about your personal life. I stare at the screen like maybe I'm reading it wrong, like maybe it's always been there and I just never noticed. But I know better. The rule wasn't there yesterday. My heart starts pounding. I pull over, open the app, and send a message to support. Something simple. There's a new rule. I broke it. How bad is this? What should I do? No reply. Silence ensued. Last time I broke the rules, it took 24 hours to respond. And I don't have 24 hours. Eventually I pull back onto the road. I figure I'll do a couple more drop-offs, keep things simple. Maybe if I don't mess up again, everything will smooth over. The next few passengers seem normal enough. Quiet, but there's this weird vibe, a kind of smugness. A few of them chuckle under their breath. One guy keeps glancing at me in the rear view like I'm the punchline to some inside joke. Another girl won't stop smiling, just this too wide grin like she knows some deep dark secret about me. It starts to wear on me. By the third ride like that, my stomach's turning. And then it gets worse. My next pickup is a woman standing alone on the corner in full wedding attire. A long white dress, veil, bouquet. It looks clean. New. Not like a Halloween thing. This looks real. Expensive. She doesn't speak when she gets in, just hums softly. Then she starts singing, "Here Comes the Bride," over and over, whispered, off-key, like she's only half remembering the melody. The hair on my arms stand up. I drive in silence, try not to react. She keeps singing all the way to her destination, and just before she opens the door, she leans forward and whispers, "So, when's the wedding?" I say nothing. She tilts her head like a confused bird. Then she gets out and drifts off into the dark, dragging the bottom of the dress behind her. I'm breathing hard now, knuckles white on the wheel. Next ride, a guy in a wrinkled button-up shirt, tie hanging loose. He climbs in already shouting. He was a mechanic, and you know what? He was useless. Sat on his butt for 20 years and expects me to be grateful. I keep driving. He doesn't stop. My fiancée wants me to invite him. Can you believe that? To my own wedding? She doesn't know the guy. Hell, I don't even know the guy. He starts banging his fist on the seat in rhythm, like he's working himself up to something. I glance in the rear view. Big mistake. His eyes are wide, wild, red around the edges. There's something shiny in his lap. For a second, I think it's a phone. It's not. Without warning, he raises a pistol, sticks it under his chin, and pulls the trigger. A deafening pop. The windshield doesn't shatter, but I hear the spray hit the back window. He slumps sideways. The door opens on its own like someone was helping him out. I hear his body land on the sidewalk with a thump, and the door slams shut behind him. I don't stop. I don't check. I just keep driving. Like I said, I'm a seasoned driver now. Sad to say, this isn't the first time one of these loons popped themselves in the back seat to try and get me to turn around. I have bigger issues to worry about. The rule break hung heavy in my head, and I still haven't heard from support. The next passenger looked relatively normal. Clean cut, mid-20s, button-down shirt tucked into dark jeans. He smiled as he climbed into the back seat. Polite nod, no words. The last few rides had been unsettling to say the least, but this guy felt different. Not better, just different. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. Something in his silence felt smug, like he already knew me, like we'd done this before. We drove for 15 minutes without a word, then I pulled up to the hotel. He didn't move. I shifted into park and turned slightly, still not looking directly at him, just trying the mirror. "This is the address. You are good to go." He stared at me, no change in expression, no acknowledgement, and then I heard it, a knock on the driver's side window. "Dad?" I nearly jumped out of my skin. I turned and there he was, James, my son, in his dress shirt and slacks, standing outside the hotel looking confused and a little nervous, the same hotel he and the groomsmen were staying at tonight. How could I forget? I forced a smile. "Oh, hey son, just dropping something off. You nervous for tomorrow?" He squinted at me like something was off. "Yeah, can we talk?" My stomach tightened. I had to get this guy out of the car. "Sure, just let me finish this ride. I'll come inside after, okay?" His eyes drifted past me to the back seat. "Troy?" he said. I froze. The figure in the back seat leaned forward, resting his elbows casually on the front headrest. His smile widened. "Hey man, can you believe this? I ran into your pops and figured we'd do a quick beer run before the big day. Hop in." My blood went cold. No, that isn't Troy, I thought to myself. But I couldn't tell James that. I don't know what would happen if I did. This was bad. Really bad. "No, James said, shaking his head in disbelief. Troy, you were just inside. You were with the guys. How did you get out here so fast? The figure didn't break character. He laughed like it was a shared joke between friends. James looked between us, clearly unnerved. Dad, who is that? I didn't wait for the thing in the back to answer. This couldn't go on any longer. I slammed the car into drive and tore out of the parking lot, tires screeching, engine roaring. In the mirror, James was yelling something, running after us. I couldn't hear him. You're gonna miss the wedding, the thing said, voice perfectly calm. That's not very fatherly of you. Shut up, I snapped. You're not getting in my head. Oh, come on, it cooed. Don't be like that. Your son talks about you all the time. To me, to everyone. I kept my eyes on the road, jaw clenched so tight I could feel it in my temples. Although he doesn't say good things, you are not a good father, Ben. Shut up, I hissed, tears bubbling in the corner of my eyes. You missed birthdays, missed milestones. What are you even doing now? Trying to show up at the last second and pretend it means something? I gripped the wheel harder. I wanted to slam the brakes, throw open the door and drag this thing out by whatever skin it had stolen. Oh, don't be like that, Ben. I have something that'll cheer you up, it whispered. Just keep driving, all the way until the sun comes up. I have something to show you. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. My phone buzzed on the seat beside me. James. Again. I didn't answer. The only sound in the car was the hum of the tires and that thing breathing behind me. Waiting. I wasn't sure what to do now. The passenger gave me a drop-off and refused to get out. That hasn't really happened before. There's no way for me to force it out either. Not without looking directly at it. If I couldn't get this guy to leave before the sun came up, I was screwed. It was useless. I pull over hard, tires kicking up dust on the shoulder of the road. The thing in the back doesn't flinch, just smiles like it's been waiting for this moment all night. I open the glove box and take out my Glock 45. Oh, it says. That didn't take long. You already getting tired of me, Ben? I don't answer. I close my eyes and take a few deep breaths. Oh, Ben, you don't have to do this. You're going to miss out on all the fun I have in store. I don't even turn around. I raise the gun behind me, steady my breathing, and pull the trigger. The shot is deafening in the confined space. I don't look, I just sit there, ears ringing, heart thudding. I wait for movement, for another voice, but there's nothing. I finally peek into the rearview mirror once again. It's slumped over in the seat, still smiling but quiet now, unmoving. I knew that wasn't going to kill this thing, but it still felt good. I just needed to shut it up for a minute. If it wasn't going to leave, so be it. I had to come to terms with that fact. I wasn't going to make it to the wedding. I was going to abandon my son. Again. This time for good. The least I could do was say sorry. Tell him I loved him. I just wish I could have done it sooner. Damn it, I wish I had more time. I pull out my phone, hands shaking. I try to call James back, but it goes straight to voicemail. I speak through the lump in my throat. Hey, it's Dad. I wanted to say I'm sorry. For everything. I should have been there for you. I should have been better. The thing in the back seat was sitting upright now, dusting off its blood-soaked shirt and slicking back the loose hair where the bullet exited. I started to sob into the phone. But I'm proud of you, James. I really am. Despite all my mistakes, you've done everything right, and I'm really, really happy I get to be at your wedding. The mimic was coughing now, pounding its chest with a closed fist. I heard a loud metallic clang as the bullet bounced off one of its teeth on the way out of its throat. I stifle a sob and take a deep breath before continuing. I love you so much, James. I'll see you soon, buddy. I hung up, tears running down my face, fogging up the screen. I sat there in silence for a few minutes. I watched as an orange glow began to rise from the horizon. It was almost sunrise. I closed my eyes and gripped the steering wheel in grim anticipation. This was it. I wasn't sure what happened if I broke this rule, but I knew there was no coming back from it. Tech support wouldn't be able to help me out of this one. Then I hear clapping. Soft, slow. I look up. In the rear view, I see the thing clapping and wearing a wide smile. Only this time it doesn't look as smug. It appears sincere. Genuine. Nice job, Ben, it says. Really touching. It drops a handful of bills into the seat beside it and steps out of the vehicle. It ducks its head inside to give one final farewell. Congrats on your son's wedding. Then it was gone, just before the sunrise. I'm not sure why it decided to leave. All the night passengers want something. A reaction, a release. Most of the time it's something mean-spirited. They crave anger, heartbreak, desperation. Maybe this one was benevolent. Maybe it needed to experience something heartfelt, something real. God knows I needed it too. Just glad it's all over. I didn't take any more rides for the rest of the night. I went home, scrubbed the blood off the back seat even though there wasn't any, changed the air freshener even though it still smelled new, took a long hot shower, put on the suit I hadn't worn in years. When I looked in the mirror, I almost didn't recognize myself. I didn't look any different, but I felt different. I wasn't ashamed of the man that looked back at me. I was going to be a new person. I knew it was too late to be a good dad. I've been away too long to fix that. But he would always be my son, and he needed to know that I was never going to abandon him again. I got in the car, not for work, just to drive. To the wedding. And for the first time in a long time, I felt something that almost scared me more than a lifetime of ferrying supernatural passengers. Hope. She's buried under that tree, my grandfather whispered, pointing out the window to the front lawn. Oh boy, I thought, here we go again. For 90 years old, Grandpa was physically capable. He could move, do basic chores, and eke out a decent existence. His primary weakness was his mind. Who's buried there? I asked, humoring him as I adjusted the angle on his lift chair. The girl with white hair and green skin. Green skin? I wondered. That's new. I fixed Grandpa's chair to the reclined position and made my way to the kitchen. I'm gonna make us some sandwiches. All right, sweetie. I left him there in front of the TV. This weekend was my monthly visit. My siblings and I switched weekends to make sure Grandpa wasn't alone. The location was inconvenient because he lived in the butt crack of nowhere. It was a good 2 hours to the nearest town. If you needed something other than general store items, you'd be driving for a while. After I finished the sandwiches, I slid one on a plate and placed it in Grandpa's lap. Thanks, honey, he said and started chewing with yellow teeth. I sat down on the sofa, cracked open a murder mystery book. A golf tournament was playing on TV. I hated golf, but that was the only thing he liked, so I occasionally glanced out the window at the beautiful vista to keep myself from boredom. Grandpa's property was strange in that it was high up in the mountains. Appropriate for farming, but his specific land hadn't been built for that. He lived in a mobile home just beneath a hill. There were trees decorating the terrain, but the only one on his quarter-acre lawn was a pine my father had brought up years ago as a sapling. It was well over 12 feet now. She's buried there, he mumbled, devouring a slice of ham on bread. Why does he keep saying that? I focused my gaze on the tree in the lawn. What an odd thing to hallucinate. 2 hours later, I was interrupted by a call from my brother, Stu. "Hey, Grace," he said, his voice as cheerful as ever. "How's Gramps?" "Coping," I said. Grandpa had fallen asleep in his chair, a half-eaten sandwich in his lap. "He's resting after a light lunch." "Good, he needs that." I turned to the couch, saved the spot in my murder mystery. My eyes fell on the lonely pine outside. "Stu, can I ask you something?" "Sure, sis." "Has Grandpa mentioned anything about a green girl buried under a tree?" Stu fell silent. "Stu? Give me a second. You there?" "Yeah, just a minute." "When did he start mentioning it?" "This morning." "Don't let him talk about it." "Why not?" "Because he gets all worked up. When Jess and I were there last month, we found him digging a hole under the tree at 2 in the morning. He thinks someone lives down there. He belongs in a care home." I turned towards Grandpa, noted his frail shoulders, the muscles that had carried bales of hay and iron tools for years. Now his body was fading. "Grace, I'm still here. Make sure he doesn't talk about it." It was 5:15 when I cleared the plates from the dining table. "Thanks for cooking, sweetheart." "Of course, Grandpa. Need help getting to bed?" "No," he sighed, seemingly deep in thought. He pushed himself out of his seat, waddled down the hall. It took him so long to reach the other end of the trailer. "Grace?" He stopped at his bedroom door. "Yes?" "You do believe me about the girl under the tree?" "Yes, Grandpa." "Good. If anything happens, stay by my side. I'll protect you." "Huh?" With that, Grandpa cracked open his bedroom door and slipped inside. Thwack. My eyes shot open. It was dark, maybe 1 in the morning. Another sound. A hard metallic noise thundered in my ears. What was that? Then again. I stumbled out of bed, disoriented, face aching with exhaustion. I ripped open the blinds. A man was swinging a tool at the foot of the pine tree. "Grandpa?" I raced to his room. The bed was empty. Then the sound again. The metallic clangs grew louder. What's happening? I ran to the sofa, grabbed my phone, turned on the flashlight, and stumbled outside. The moon was barely up. Cold air bit my skin as I pulled my shirt close, covering my body. Just ahead, Grandpa was hunched at the 12-foot pine, swinging a pickaxe. I was so stunned to see him lifting the massive tool. "Grandpa, what are you?" "She's coming, Grace. I have to set her free." "Grandpa, it's 3 in the morning. I have to get her out." I grabbed Grandpa's wrist, but he shoved me back. I landed on my posterior, my flashlight's beam illuminating his face, wide with terror. "Don't stop me, Grace. If I don't let her out, she'll take you too." Without another word, he slammed his tool into the earth. The next morning, Grandpa and I sat at the table chewing bacon and eggs. Neither of us had slept. "Grandpa?" He looked at me with weariness in his eyes. "What happened last night?" He let out a deep sigh, pulled out a worn shoebox from a cabinet. "See this?" He brought out a stack of black and white photos. "This is your grandmother, Belle, and me a few years after we were married. And there," he tapped the face of an adorable boy, "is your father." In the background of the picture, I noticed a young girl, maybe 4 years old, perched on a fence watching everyone with a miserable gaze. "Who's that?" "The green girl. She's the one buried under that tree. She took your father and grandmother. Now, she's coming for me." "Why?" "Because she's death." "Death?" Boom. The front door lurched with sudden impact. Grandpa and I swerved our gazes deep in fear and concentration. "Didn't you think it was odd how Grandma died so young? And your father? The girl lived in the woods. She was there for each family member who passed on. My uncle, aunt. When I figured it out, I found her in the woods. Made sure she never came after us again. You killed a child? She's no child, Grace. She's evil, and she's coming for me. Boom. I ran to the couch, peered out the window to see a hunched figure wearing old pioneer clothes. They were bashing their fists against the door. Someone's out there. It's all right, Grace. She only wants me. The slamming grew more intense. I retraced my steps to the table. Why is she harassing our family? I don't know, Grace, but it's been like that ever since I was a boy. Whatever you do, don't make eye contact with her. Boom. The front door caved in under the pressure. I closed my eyes, then reopened them. A strange figure stood in the doorframe, about 4 feet tall, dressed in worn rags. Her skin was as green as a pine tree's leaves. Long white hair flowed down her back. She's here. The green girl shuffled toward us across the carpet. I watched in suspense, so scared I could barely breathe. My eyes searched for a weapon and found a letter opener. I reached for it. Stop, Grace. This has to happen. I gawked in horror as the green girl lurched up to Grandpa, let out a blood-chilling gasp. The sound of her breath stung my ears. Grandpa commanded, "Only me. That's the deal." The green girl grabbed his face with bone-thin hands and held her mouth over his. A sickening sound of rushing wind accompanied her widening mouth. Grandpa gave a frightened gasp, then collapsed. "Grandpa!" The green girl let out a sickening groan, limped back to the door. "Wait." The creature looked at me. "Why are you doing this?" The green girl pointed at the clock above the dining table, then pointed at herself, then me. For the next few seconds, I was too shocked to move. With a final groan, the green girl limped out the front door and was gone. It's been 2 days. I called the sheriff. They investigated everything. I've been asked so many questions. My siblings think I'm crazy. Stu's the only one who believes me. Why? He says that one night, while he was at Grandpa's, he heard a woman speaking in one of the rooms. It reminded him of a soothing voice he had once heard as a young boy, a voice that told him the exact date he would die. And that date wasn't far off. For context, my grandmother lives deep in the middle of nowhere. Her house is on a secluded peninsula, surrounded by a lake. The closest store is a 15-minute drive, and her neighbors, they only come up in the summer. In December, it's just her and, in this case, me. She and my grandmother were heading to Tennessee for a week and asked me to house sit and take care of the animals. I agreed. I was 17 at the time, and honestly, I thought I'd enjoy the peace and quiet. They packed up their things and left around 10 p.m. After they drove off, I got comfortable, turned on the TV, and settled in. Around midnight, I started getting sleepy and decided to head to bed. Let me explain the layout quickly. The house is all one level. No basement, no upstairs. You walk through the front door into the living room. The kitchen is to the left, and to the right on the other side of the living room is a hallway that leads to 3 bedrooms and 1 bathroom. My room was at the very end of the hall, and from the bed, I had a clear view of the living room. I turned off the lights, went to my room, and laid down. Chula, my grandma's black lab, hopped up beside me. She's the sweetest dog you will ever meet. Obsessively friendly. She loves people, never growls, and is always wagging her tail at strangers. She's just pure love in dog form. A few hours passed. I had just drifted off to sleep when I heard my grandmother's voice. "Leah, can you come help me?" My eyes shot open. I sat up slowly and called out, "Grandma?" No answer. "What do you need help with?" Silence. Then a few seconds later, I heard it again, louder this time. "Leah, I need help." I thought I was dreaming. I sat all the way up, staring at the door. A few seconds passed, then I heard a low, guttural growl. I turned to look at Chula. She had sat up straight, hair raised, staring into the hallway with her teeth bared. She growled low, deep in her throat, eyes fixed on something I couldn't see. I turned on the hallway light and peeked out. Nothing there. No movement. I walked over and looked out the window next to the bed since it faced the driveway. Her car wasn't there. I quickly shut the window and locked my bedroom door, heart pounding. This was an old house. Every step creaked. I should have heard something, but there was nothing but silence. I grabbed my phone and tried to call my grandma. It went straight to voicemail. I called my mom, trying to sound calm, but my voice was shaking. I asked her if Grandma had come back for some reason. She said no. Then the knocking started, but not at the front door. It was right on my bedroom door. Heavy, slow, deliberate. And here's what chilled me to my core. The voice was still coming from the living room. "Leah, please come help me." It didn't make sense. I could hear her calling from the other end of the house while the knocks were right outside my door. She kept calling me, each time more irritated. The calmness was gone. Now it was commanding, aggressive. "Leah, let me in. I need your help. Leah, open this door. Leah, now." It sounded like her, but distorted. Like something trying to copy her voice and getting it almost right. Chula stayed pressed to my side, growling steady and low, like she'd rip something apart if it got in. The shotgun was in the same room with me, locked in the gun safe in the corner. I knew the code if I needed it, but I didn't even move from the bed. I couldn't. I was frozen. Eventually the knocking stopped. The voice faded away. I must have fallen asleep somehow, because the next thing I knew, sunlight was pouring through the blinds. For a minute, I almost convinced myself I had imagined the whole thing, but when I checked my phone, the call logs were still there. I really had called my mom. I really had called my grandma. That part was real. I tried to push it out my head. Told myself it was some kind of sleep paralysis or dream. Around 11 p.m., I'd just gotten out of the hot tub in the garage. Now, here's the thing. The garage isn't attached to the house. It's about 20 feet down the driveway. A separate little building all on its own. You have to walk across the driveway to get to it. That night, I'd left the garage door wide open because, well, there's nobody else around for miles. I figured it was safe enough, and I wanted to air the place out a bit after the hot tub steam. Then I heard it. The motion sensor went off with that sharp, barking alert. A second later, something slammed really loud in the garage, like someone knocked over a metal shelf or kicked the wall. I hit the garage remote and shut the door fast, heart racing. Not long after, maybe 30 minutes after I got back in the house, there was a knock at the front door. I crept toward the door, standing just far enough away to not be seen through the frosted glass. I didn't move, didn't speak. That's when I heard her. "Please, let me in. I'm cold. I'm hungry." The voice was scratchy, like an older woman, soft but weirdly flat. I didn't answer at first. I just stood there frozen, heart pounding. After a few seconds, I said, loud enough to carry, "How did you get all the way out here?" Silence. Then more knocking, louder, quicker now. She spoke again more forcefully. "I said let me in. I need help." I backed away from the door, still trying to stay calm. "You can't just show up at people's houses. You need to leave." That's when the knocking changed. It wasn't knocking anymore. It was banging. Fast, heavy, aggressive. I ran to the room and punched in the code to the gun safe. Just as I grabbed the shotgun, she slammed the door again so hard it rattled in the frame. "Let me in right now." The knocking had stopped, but I couldn't shake the feeling that she hadn't left. I was straining to hear anything. footsteps, whispering, even breathing, but the house was dead silent. Not even the wind. Then her voice came again. Not right at the door this time. Off to the side, almost like it was outside the window. "Leah, please, let me in." I didn't move. She tried again, louder, sharper. "You're being rude. Open the door." I sat down in the recliner in the living room, shotgun resting in my lap facing the door. Chula laid tense at my feet. I gripped the shotgun tightly, eyes locked on the door. She circled the house. I could hear her moving from one side to the other, knocking on the kitchen door, then the garage door, then back to the front. Her voice followed. Same exact words every time like a broken record. "I need your help, Leah. You're the only one here." She kept pacing around the outside of the house, banging on doors, tapping windows, muttering things I couldn't quite hear. That's when it hit me. She called me by my name. I hadn't told her. I hadn't spoken to anyone outside. No way she should have known. I thought, if she was supposed to be here, she'd use the keypad to get inside. She'd know the code. Nobody was supposed to be here. And yet, here she was. I sat in the living room holding the shotgun watching the door until the sky started to lighten and the birds began to sing. I never heard her leave. No footsteps, no car, no sound at all. When I stepped outside after sunrise to let the dog out, the ground was covered in a thin layer of snow, and it was untouched. No footprints, no tire marks, no trails leading to or from the doors. Nothing. Just cold, clean silence. Later that morning, I called my aunt and begged her to come stay with me. I didn't even try to explain. I just told her I couldn't be there alone another night. She showed up that evening, and I almost cried with relief. For the first time in 2 days, I felt like I could breathe. That night, I finally was able to get the sleep I desperately needed. I will never stay there alone again. Rest in peace, Chula. She passed from old age. First off, my house isn't that big. From the outside, you'd see a pretty average, size 2-story house. It's not the biggest house on the block, but it's where me, my wife, and our dog call home. 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom, and a basement. Occasionally I'll notice some strange noises coming from the basement, but I usually figure it's just some animal scratching on the walls outside or something. Lately, however, the noises have been getting louder and more frequent. It's gotten to the point where we can't ignore it anymore. Honestly, we don't usually go in the basement that much. It's mostly served as storage for all our crap. Going downstairs, you'd find stacks of boxes, kayaks, old furniture, stuff like that. Tonight we were sitting in the living room downstairs when we heard a loud thud from down in the basement. We paused the TV and looked at each other. "What was that?" she asked. "I don't know. Maybe something fell over." I responded. We got up and walked over to the basement door. She was too creeped out to go, so I stepped down while she kept guard upstairs. I can't really blame her. Seeing pitch black leading downstairs was enough to send shivers down my spine, but I got down there and turned on the light. The basement wasn't lit up entirely well. Some of the light bulbs obviously needed to be replaced, and it didn't cover nearly everything, so I had to resort to the flashlight on my phone as well. I was walking around, realizing how desperately we needed to organize and dust down here, when a shadow darted in front of me and knocked something over, far too quick for me to make anything out. "Jesus!" I exclaimed. "Are you okay?" She yelled down. "Yeah, I'm fine. I think there's an animal down here," I responded. "Are you serious? Get back up here and shut the door. I don't want you to get rabies or something," she said. Right after that, I heard a door click shut in front of me. I looked over to the far side of the wall. There were multiple stacks of boxes that blocked the majority of the wall, but behind that, I could barely make out the sight of paneling and some windows. I walked closer. There was definitely something here that wasn't the same concrete wall that was there before. Once I pushed some boxes out of the way, there was no mistaking it. This was the front of a house. A black door, one window on both sides, and white wooden paneling. "Come down here. You have to see this," I yelled up at her. We were both standing in front of this new discovery in absolute awe. After some initial shock, we were discussing how something like this could have possibly showed up, when we had never seen it before. "This is creepy as hell. We should go," she said to me. "Wait a sec. I'm gonna open the door," I replied. "Screw that. I want to leave now. Let's go stay at my parents'. I've listened to enough paranormal stories to know this can't be good. Plus, there might be a coyote or raccoon in here right now," she stammered. "Oh, please. I doubt there's anything supernatural here. This is where the concrete wall starts," I said, opening the door, just to suddenly realize how wrong I was. When the door was fully open and we looked inside, we saw a fully furnished living room. The best way I could describe the appearance of this room would be a 50s aesthetic. Not only that, it honestly looked warm and cozy inside. When we stepped inside, I can't explain just how comfortable we felt. This overwhelming sensation of belonging and security washed over us. If it wasn't for the fact that we both knew just how bizarre this was, we might have wanted to stay in there. That feeling we suddenly had was taken over by our grounded sense of reality. This was wrong, and we both knew it. This room shouldn't be here, but it doesn't end here. There's two separate hallways that look like they lead even further in. Not only that, I could see a door that was open and led even further down. There are more levels to this area. "Can we please leave? This doesn't feel safe at all. Please," she begged me. "What? Come on, we should explore this some more. It's not often that your house gets extra square footage," I said, being the enabler I was. She was reluctant, but I could tell she wanted to look around just as much as me. And we might have too, if we didn't hear something coming up from the stairs below. Something was sprinting towards us, barreling and crashing into the walls as they did. Right at that moment, I didn't want to take any chances with whatever might be lurking down here. I grabbed her arm, and we bolted right out of there and ran right upstairs back to our living room. I slammed the basement door behind me when I felt continuous bangs right behind me. They were quick, and they just might have caught us if my reaction wasn't faster. Thank God me and her were able to run out to our car and get out of there without having to face whatever that was. As I'm typing this out, we're in the guest room of her parents' house and we're both really shaken up. Does anyone know what we should do? I mean, we have to go back at some point. We can't just stay here forever. Has anyone ever experienced something like this? Because I'm genuinely at a loss here, hoping someone can help us get our house back. I just realized our dog is still there. I know how it sounds. I know I sound crazy. I'm not crazy. I'm not. About 2 years ago, I was at a bar with my friends. I don't tend to go out and drink. I don't like clubs or raves or big events with loud music. I like people and socializing, but generally in a more relaxed environment like a house party or something. However, I was convinced to go out by one of my close friends, Andrew. He was cheated on by his girlfriend about a week prior, and he lived by the philosophy of, to get over someone, you must get under someone new. I never understood that mentality, but since he was there for my last breakup, I thought I'd be there for his. I spent most of the night sipping on cheap whiskey I overpaid for, in the back watching my friend talk to this girl he's been trying to impress with his dance moves that seem to imitate the dance of a bird looking for a mate. Strangely enough, it seemed to be working. I wasn't really looking to find a girl myself. After my last relationship ended, I kinda swore off dating. Not really because it ended poorly. We are still friends vaguely. Just too much to deal with emotionally at this point in my life. I feel like I needed to be by myself for a while longer to figure out who I am and what I truly want. Until that night when what I truly wanted actually bumped into me, spilling her drink all over me. I looked up and I saw her. She was panicking and apologizing about spilling her gin and tonic all over me, but I was just trying to catch my breath after she stole it with her eyes. I mean, this girl was gorgeous. Not supermodel status or anything, but just something about her. She felt like the girl next door you'd have a crush on in elementary school, when you first started to discover that girls don't have cooties, and if they did, it was worth getting. I remember this night vividly like it happened yesterday. It was all so surreal. After the general apologies that were shared, her for making my white button-up with rose designs all over it soaked, and me for, well, I don't know what I apologized for. I just felt like I should say sorry for breathing the same air as her. She finally asked me my name. Desmond. Hey Desmond, my name's Mary. We proceeded to talk all night. She was wonderful. She was a psychology major on her final year of her bachelor course, planning on getting her PhD and minoring in philosophy. She loved hiking, dogs, smoking weed, kids' cartoons. Her favorite thing to do, she said, was taking walks at night. She said it was just the perfect time to do so. Everyone's asleep, so it makes the world yours and just yours. She was funny in a witty pun way. We talked so long my friend's dance moves finally got the girl he'd been talking to all night. He came up to tell me he was leaving, and he'd give me a ride home if I wanted, but I told him no thanks. I'll just walk home. I'm enjoying my time. Mary and I went on a walk that night until the sun came up. I swear I was already in love. We shared phone numbers and set up a coffee date in a couple days. Months went by and everything was going perfectly. Since I worked weekends and she went to school weekdays, the only time we could hang out was at nights. We watched movies at the theater, went on walks, cooked dinner at my place. We never went over to her apartment. She said she lived in one of those 4-bedroom with 4 random people places, where everyone shares a common room and kitchen but pays for their individual room as rent. At nights, they would throw parties that were filled with drunk college kids, or they would be up late in the common room studying with each other, so it was always my place we'd go to. She always had issues with her roommates, so I wasn't ever gonna push to go over there, 'cause frankly, based on her stories, I wouldn't like them much either. After about a year of dating, little over a year ago, she randomly knocked on my door. She was supposed to be studying for her midterms with her roommates, so wasn't expecting her, but I gladly let her in. She was crying something fierce. I quickly sat her down, asked her what happened while making her favorite caramel tea we get at a local tea shop. She explained to me that her and her roommates got into a massive fight, and she had to get out of there. She talked about how she hated living with them, but she couldn't afford to move out. I, without skipping a beat, asked her to move with me. My lease was ending, and I was already looking at this 2-bedroom outside of town that isn't too far away from her college and my work. We talked about it all night until she finally agreed with me that she would. Her biggest fear, she didn't have much money to help with the lease, which wasn't an issue to me, seeing as I was planning on moving there with or without her. After she moved in, the first 3 months was amazing. Everything went smoothly. She was happy, I was happy. We were learning to live with each other and grow with each other. I knew I was gonna marry her, until things started getting weird. In the last 9 months, looking back in hindsight, there were dozens of instances that just felt off or out of nowhere. For example, she has met my parents, which my mom loved her, but I never met hers. When I asked her about it, she started to tear up and explained to me that they died when she was in middle school. She was on a field trip in school, and when she got back, her parents weren't there to pick her up. After waiting a while, she said a cop came up to her and told her that her parents died in a car wreck. Apparently, on their way to pick her up, a semi T-boned them running a red, and they died on impact. She lived with her grandma until she was 17, and sadly her grandma got cancer and passed away right before her 18th birthday. I felt it to be strange that after a year and a half she's just now telling me, but I just assumed it was a touchy subject and left it there. Another strange thing I noticed is she didn't really have friends, nor was interested in making them. I never heard any stories about them other than a classmate saying something funny or dumb in class. I tried to set up a double date with Andrew and Christy, the girl he met at the bar, but she usually had an excuse of being too tired from school or not the right time. It always felt like the only person she hung out with was me. In the last 2 months, she started to become distant. It wouldn't be anything major. She just talked less, focused less on conversation. She didn't want to go on walks that much. She stayed late at school to study. She missed dinners more frequently, and most of the time I wouldn't see her until I woke up in the morning, and she was in bed next to me. I was planning on talking to her about this haze she was in, but I was praying that it was something harmless, like her finals just eating up her time, or stress of graduating afterwards and seeking employment. Our relationship was pretty solid, so I don't think it was her cheating on me or breaking up with me. However, I started to get worried the more and more she came home late, or how much she slept in the day. She slowly stopped eating more than some fruits and snacks. I was worried she was getting sick, so I begged her to see a doctor and get a checkup. After a couple weeks of her saying she was fine, but clearly wasn't, she gave in and told me to make an appointment. The appointment was set for last week, August 1st. It was set for 9:30 a.m., which doesn't seem early, but for 2 night owls, it was a rough wake up. I got up to the alarm and went to roll over to wake her up, and she wasn't there. I figured she just didn't sleep well and woke up early, so I got up to get dressed and headed into the living room. No sign of her. I started to call out her name to be met with the silence of an empty apartment. I walked outside to see if she was out there, or took our car somewhere, and our car was still there. I started to freak a little. I wanted to call her, but when I went to my phone, her name wasn't in my contacts. It confused me because how could I accidentally delete a contact? I quickly dialed her number manually, only to be met with, "This line has been disconnected or out of service." I started to tear up. At this point, I assumed she ran away or something. It was the only logical excuse I had, but why go through the effort of deleting my contact in my phone just to disconnect hers? Why would she just leave? Nothing in our relationship was going badly, and I thought after all we'd been through together, I at the very minimum deserved a note or a conversation. Hell, an email, just something. My brain went full force. So I called Andrew. He picked up, still hungover from the night before. I could tell because he was still slightly slurring his speech. "What's up, bro? Why you calling so early? You know I was at a party last night." "Bro, she left. Disconnected her phone. Deleted her contact in my phone. She left, man. She just left." "Who left?" "Mary. Who else?" "Calm down, man. First off, who's Mary?" "Are you screwing with me right now? This is not the time to mess with me." "Dude, I don't know who Mary is. I'm not messing with you." My heart sank on that sentence. I was so confused. My mind racing 1,000,000 miles a second, and none of it was making sense. "What do you mean you don't know Mary? She's my girlfriend. The one I live with. The girl at the bar. We've been dating for 2 years." "Dude, you haven't dated anyone since Jessica. Are you okay? Did you take any drugs last night? Do I need to go over there?" I just hung up the phone. I just couldn't in that moment. I needed to go look for her. The first place that came to mind was the college. I sped over there as fast as I could and ran into the lobby of the main building. "Hi, can I help you with anything?" Yeah. I said in the calmest demeanor I could muster. I'm looking for my girlfriend. I was seeing if she had any classes today or something. What class would she be in, and what's her name? Mary Fulbright. And, I think the earliest class would be psychology with Professor Jackson. She started to clack on her keyboard for what felt like an eternity. Well, psychology class won't start until noon, and Professor Jackson won't be here until 10, but I don't see any Mary Fulbrights on the attendance register. What do you mean? She's on her master's right now. She's been going to this college for 5 years now. How could she not be on the registration? I don't know, sir, but I don't see her here. You can ask Professor Jackson when he arrives if you want to go to his room. It's room 312 in Building C. I sprinted out there and found the building and the room. I sat there trying to slow my shaking down. I could barely breathe. A mixture of fear and confusion was raging through my body to the point where it was the only thing I could notice. I barely caught Professor Jackson as he walked by me. I rushed to him. Hey, I'm sorry to bother you. The receptionist lady told me you'd be here soon. I was asking about my girlfriend, wondering if you'd know anyone who takes your first class. Mary Fulbright? Who? He responds, caught off guard and confused. Mary. She's getting her master's. You've been her teacher for 2 years. I'm sorry, I don't know Mary. Do you have a picture of her? I grabbed my phone and opened the gallery. I started looking through the images, and all of her pictures were gone. Any selfie she sent that I screenshotted just wasn't there. Then I noticed something strange. We went to a national park last weekend. I requested the day off. We had a stranger take a picture of us in front of a statue at the hub. Her idea. I love that picture, but she wasn't in it. I was just standing there smiling by myself. I almost dropped my phone. At this point, I was breaking. I looked up at the professor and apologized and excused myself before I was about to fall apart. I sprinted outside, my breath out of control. Nothing felt real. I scrolled through my entire phone and nothing. Any pictures we were in together, it was just me. Some I was even doing a weird hand placement, like I was relaxing my arm on an invisible person. Nothing of just her. I called my mom in a panic, just trying to get something to ground me. She's met her dozens of times. She has to know. It rang, and rang, and rang, and finally, "Hey, sweetie, what's up? You okay?" "Hey, Mom, do you know Mary Fulbright?" "No, am I supposed to?" "Oh, okay, thanks. Anyways, I'll talk to you later. Love you." I quickly hung up the phone. I spent the last week looking for any evidence of her existing. It felt like my mind was fractured and nothing was real. Maybe Andrew was made up. Maybe my job was made up. Maybe this is like Shutter Island and I'm in a mental hospital. I felt like I should be in one. Hell, I was about to check myself in if it wasn't for me going back home and looking at a picture. All the pictures of her weren't there anymore. Like they never were there in the first place. Our lease only had my signature. All her schoolwork and clothes aren't on the desk or closet anymore. I was defeated until I looked at my desk after sitting on the couch, shell-shocked like I just lived through D-Day, trying to figure out why my memory of her was so vivid, so detailed, until I saw a picture. She wasn't in it, but it was a picture of me on the couch. She loved that picture of me. The thing was, she was the one who took it. If she didn't take it, who did? It was the only evidence I had to show that she was real, that I wasn't crazy. I've been researching ever since. People's disappearances, people's stories, seeing if there's anyone with something like mine. That's why I'm writing this post. I found a couple of stories online. No connection to Mary, but the people were saying the same thing. Their significant other disappearing out of the blue. Their fear of going insane. Some lost their minds. Others moved on. I found a small group still looking, still believing. I have a ticket to Peru. That's where one of them, someone who is going through something similar. His name is Tom, is that. He said that there's a lead of someone who might know what's going on. A shaman or something. I don't know. I don't care. I will find you, Mary. That's why I'm posting this on Reddit. Mary, if you are reading this by chance, I know you exist. I'm looking for you. I'll find you, I swear. I'm not crazy. I will find you. I stared up at the entrance to the old hospital, drinking in its features. Cracks spider-webbed along the bricks and vines had claimed most of the exterior. It was an oddity against the encroaching forest, a relic of a time long since past. It felt wrong for it to be there, out of place, which only worked to pique my interest even further. Well, are we going to stand here all day, or are we checking this thing out? Kyle asked, lightly slapping me on the back. Let's go. Don't want to lose too much daylight, Maddie interjected, tugging my arm. As you wish. Ladies first, I replied, extending a hand to the door. Maddie rewarded me with a glare. The interior of the hospital was in an even worse state than the outside. Lights had been smashed out, graffiti coated the walls. The pink insulation hung from the ceiling above. As an avid urbex enthusiast, I was reveling in it. Something about being in a place that humans didn't belong always sent a rush of exhilaration surging through my veins. I lived for the thrill. But after what happened that day, my passion for urban exploring has been snuffed out. We were taking photos of abandoned medical equipment when Kyle brought it up. Hey guys, he spoke in a whisper, despite the fact we were alone. Yeah? I replied, sensing the tremor in his voice. Does it feel like we're being followed? I don't know. It might just be me, but something tells me that we're not the only ones here. Stop. You're trying to prank me and it's not going to work this time. How gullible do you think I am? Maddie retorted, crossing her arms. Maddie, I promise I'm not joking. Her expression faltered when she realized the severity of Kyle's tone. You're really not? Jake, is he being serious? I sighed. When Maddie got freaked out, it wasn't a good time for anyone. Things had been going smoothly up until that point, and I didn't want to ruin a good thing. Tell you what, Kyle, if we check out a couple more rooms and your sixth sense is still going haywire, we can leave. Sound good? Despite their nods of approval, I could feel the shift in the atmosphere. The tension was thicker, solid as if I could reach out and touch it. Knowing what I know now, I wish we would have left the moment Kyle said something. We continued our search with no further protest from either party. We photographed our findings in silence, that pervasive unease still omnipresent. I kept trying to find something to say, but I couldn't arrange the words properly in my head. After a while, it was Maddie who broke the silence. So, who's down to find the morgue? She said as a devilish grin inched across her lips. Kyle and I shot each other a glance. Neither of us wanted to go, but we didn't really have a choice. If we refused, Maddie would call us cowards until the day we died. Sure, let's do it, Kyle said. He tried to sound confident, but he and I both knew the truth. All right, but after that, we're leaving. My friends each nodded, and with that, we set off to find the hospital's morgue. It only took us about 10 minutes. As we walked, I tried to discern if I could feel the eyes watching our every move like Kyle had described. At one point, I thought I did feel it, an intense, overwhelming sensation that we weren't alone. I found myself throwing glances behind us every so often, but I didn't voice my concerns. A decision that I regret to this day. Before I knew it, I found myself descending the stairs to the basement. Our flashlight beams danced along the staircase as we went, shedding light into the inky depths below. Once we reached the bottom, there was a long hallway with a set of double doors at the end. "Spooky, isn't it?" Maddie whispered as we continued. "Yeah, feels ominous," I said as a shiver rippled through me. The air was colder down there, lending to the creepy ambience. We paused once we reached the doors. "Okay, who wants to go first?" Maddie asked, surveying our expressions. "I think you should. You suggested it," Kyle retorted, wearing a grin. "Yep, as I said before, ladies first." I joined in, earning me another glare. "Fine, but if I die, I'm going to come back just to take you with me." Maddie pushed open the doors and led the charge, Kyle and I following behind her. Standing in that room sent a chill down my spine. Kyle turned to me, that taunting smirk returning to his lips, and he whispered into my ear, "Let's prank Maddie. You distract her. Meanwhile, I'll climb into one of the freezer racks and make a bunch of noise in there. I bet she'll scream loud enough to wake the dead." I smiled at him. Maddie was never going to forgive us for this. "One problem," I muttered. "How are you going to close yourself in?" "I'll figure it out, just—" "Nice try. I can hear you." Maddie glowered at us like we were the spawns of Satan. My face flushed with color, and sweat beaded atop my brow. Yeah, we weren't actually going to go through with it. Just an idea," Kyle said, rubbing the back of his neck. She wasn't buying it. Bang. A sudden rattling sound erupted from one of the mortuary chambers that Kyle had centered his plot around. It started off quiet, small enough to be dismissed as nothing more than a groan of old metal, but it soon escalated to a loud clanging. We stared at each other, wide-eyed, our faces pale as ghosts. The sound had grown into a deafening pounding. Something was being slammed hard against the inside of the door. It was clear that Kyle's earlier premonition had been spot on. We were not alone in that hospital. We stood, frozen in shock, left to helplessly watch as the door buckled under the weight of the blows. Over and over and over again. The banging increasingly got louder. To my utter horror, the door gave way. For a moment it was silent, the dented metal creaking, barely clinging to its hinges. Then something began crawling out of the unit. Something sinister. A pair of feet emerged from the darkness. The skin was a dark purple, and stitching around the ankles was barely holding together. A dirty, blood-stained hospital gown followed. Then a twin set of patchwork arms. Finally, the thing's head shot out of the dark as it hoisted itself out of the freezer rack. The face will haunt me for the rest of my life. Stitches pieced its mottled skin together. Roughly hewn flesh, sallow and wrong. Its smile was crooked. Too many teeth fighting for space in that twisted grin, and its eyes, they were completely black, devoid of life, devoid of a soul. Kyle suddenly grabbed my arm hard. He ran without a word, Maddie in tow. That gave me the resolve I needed to follow them. The three of us bolted down the hallway, desperate to get away from whatever we had awoken. My heart jackhammered in my chest as I realized that we were being chased. The sound of bare feet slapping against the tile fueled my legs to work harder than they ever had before. Once we reached the stairs, I bounded up them 3 at a time, bolting for the exit the second I reached the top. The thing had been gaining on us in the basement, but once we reached the main landing, I couldn't hear those wet, awkward clops pursuing us any longer. Even so, I didn't let that stop me. I kept running, never once looking back, until I burst out the front doors, unlocked my car, and threw myself into the driver's seat. Only then did I allow myself to catch my breath. A second later, Kyle threw open the passenger side door, dove in, and slammed down the lock. He turned to me, his face pale and soaked in sweat, still trying to catch his breath. He managed to croak out the words that still haunt me to this day. "Jake? Where's Maddie?" My heart plummeted into my chest. She wasn't there. Should we go back? I asked, a cold dread blanketing me at the thought. The two of us sat there staring out the windshield, praying that somehow our friend would explode out of those doors and join us, but that didn't happen. We sat there for longer than I'd like to admit, completely silent, desperately grasping for a solution. Eventually, we called the cops. The police searched the entire hospital and combed the surrounding woods, but they didn't find any trace of Maddie or the man who had chased us. Aside from the text agreeing to meet that day, there was no evidence that Maddie had even been there in the first place. It was as if she simply poofed out of existence. But Kyle and I knew what really happened. We had abandoned her down there with that monstrosity. We'd put our own safety over hers. We were the reason that she went missing, and we had to live with that. Kyle and I drifted apart in the weeks that followed. Maddie still hadn't been found, and I think the weight of what we'd been through was too heavy for us to come to terms with. When I'd look at Kyle, the crushing reminder of what we'd done, or more aptly, what we'd failed to do, would come flooding back. It eventually reached a point where we would only sporadically check in on one another. That is, until he sent me a strange text one afternoon. "Hey man, I need to talk to you. Not over the phone, face to face. Meet me by the pond in the park at 8 tonight." The message caught me off guard. Whatever it was that Kyle needed to tell me, it sounded urgent. As I would come to find out, it was. I found Kyle sitting on a park bench by the pond. It wasn't completely dark yet, but the sun was dipping below the horizon. As I claimed my spot beside him, I noted that he was staring off into the distance. His hair was disheveled, and it appeared as if he hadn't slept in days. "Kyle, are you okay? You look like you've been through the ringer." He turned to me, his bloodshot eyes connecting with mine. "Jake, I'm not okay. I don't think I'll ever be okay again. Man, I can't take it." He was getting choked up and tears began to well in the corners of his eyes. "No, you can't think like that. Everything's going to be all right. If this is about Maddie, she'll..." Kyle turned to me, the stone-cold look in his gaze deterring me from finishing my sentence. "You haven't been seeing her, have you? So it's only me. I'm screwed, man. It's over. She's going to come for me. Then she'll use me to get you and..." I grabbed Kyle's shoulders and shook him. He was raving like a lunatic, an asylum patient off his meds. "Snap out of it. What are you rambling about? Seeing Maddie? What does that mean?" Kyle looked at me with a cold stare. His wild hair fluttered in the wind as an ominous breeze swept through. "This is going to sound insane, but Maddie has been visiting me. Or what's left of her. Her mouth is stitched shut. Her hair is soaked in blood. And now she's wearing one of those hospital gowns. It got her. She's not alive anymore, Jake. The thing from the hospital, it's using her to get me. And once it does, you'll be next." I couldn't formulate a response. I stared at him, mouth agape, turning over his words in my mind. Could what he had just told me even be possible? "That's it. That's all I needed to tell you. Well, and I guess I wanted to say goodbye. I doubt I'll make it much longer. Jake, I'm so scared." Tears openly streamed down his face, and my first instinct was to pull him into a hug. He sobbed while I tried to console him, failing to subdue the tremors that racked his frame. "Look, it's going to work out. Trust me. You are not going to die. I'll think of a way out of this." We both knew that my words were hollow, yet it felt better than saying nothing at all. Kyle pulled away and wiped his eyes, that foreign look when I'd first seen him returning to his face. "Jake, I really hope you're right. For both of our sakes." I called Kyle's mom that night and voiced my concerns. Her son was spiraling. and whether it was due to some entity gunning for his soul or some kind of vivid hallucination, I was determined to get him some help. But my efforts were all in vain. Kyle's body was found 2 days later. He'd eaten a slug from a 12 gauge. The neighbors claimed that they heard screaming, hysterical wails, like Kyle was trying to get away from someone or something, and then they reported hearing multiple gunshots, followed by an unnerving silence. No one saw anyone enter or exit the home, leaving all of the witnesses perplexed. The news painted him like a man with a rampant mental condition, a loon who let his untreated delusions frighten him into making the worst decision possible. But I know that what Kyle saw was real, because lately, I've been seeing her too. She appeared for the first time the night that Kyle died, standing below a street lamp across from my window. His description of her had been deadly accurate. Maddie's eyes were stitched shut, and her arms hung limply by her sides. Her hair glistened with something dark, and the hospital gown she wore had yellow stains blotched across the front. But her smile, there was something sinister behind it, something evil pulling the strings, and I'm afraid that I'm going to find out what that thing is firsthand. 3 days have passed since then. I've started seeing Kyle too. The two of them had been moving progressively closer with each passing day. Last night, they were in my room. They just stared at me, smirking, taunting me. Maddie with her unseeing eyes and grin with too many teeth. Kyle with what was left of his reconstructed face. Flesh and bone melded together to form something vaguely human. Now I realized they came to deliver a message. My doomsday clock is ticking down, and I only have a few hours left. Because when I awoke this morning, splattered across my bedroom wall in a deep crimson, were the words, "Tonight, your soul belongs to me." The way my job started wasn't unique. It's a story you may have even heard before. I got my heart broken pretty bad and hit rock bottom. Drinking, drugs, sleeping, and unemployment would sum up my day-to-day. It got to the point that I had people coming over, friends and family of mine, and performing checkups on me with poor disguises. For example, "It's been forever since we got food together," or "Why don't we go running like we used to?" It annoyed me because I felt pitied, but honestly, it's a blessing to have people who care enough to. But I rarely took them up on it, and eventually they dropped the disguises. A painfully long, awkward intervention with all my friends, my parents, and my sister. Tears, yelling, pleading, also painfully uncomfortable. In the end, I agreed and I promised I would get out of the house, get a job, do something with myself other than waste away in my dingy apartment. I looked around, but the idea of working a cash register or some other monotonous 9-to-5 was unbearable. After some time, I came across an ad online. Explore the hidden echoes of Blackmouth Cave. Join us for a once-in-a-lifetime quiet nature experience through one of the park's most unique natural landmarks. This guided journey will take you along pristine riverbanks and into the cool, echoing depths of Blackmouth Cave, where time seems to stand still. Learn about the cave's fascinating history, its ancient rock formations, and the wildlife that calls it home. Tour includes professional, knowledgeable guides, all safety equipment provided, small group sizes for an intimate experience. Important: guests must maintain whisper-level voices during certain portions of the tour for wildlife preservation. Comfortable shoes recommended. Limited daily availability. Reserve your spot now. A tour guide? That was an idea. It would get me out of the house, and I like nature. I used to be very active before my spiraling. Why not? So I sent them an email to inquire about any open positions. They responded quickly, very quickly, as in within a few seconds. Definitely strange, but it was easy to brush off. The email was polite, almost warm, and invited me to come in within the week for an interview. The office was a trailer at the edge of the park. Door propped open, letting in the smell of pine and wet earth. Inside was a desk, 2 folding chairs, and a man who looked almost as nervous as I was. He shook my hand without smiling and motioned for me to sit. His eyes were glassy, not unfriendly, just unreadable. He asked me some pretty basic stuff. Have I ever done any similar work? How well did I know Blackmouth? How am I at following instructions? I really did my best to make myself look good, and apparently it worked. He offered me the job. I asked him about the pay, and he told me I'd be given a quarter share of the profits. A tour was about $30, and a group is usually around 3 to 10 people. That put me at $22.50 to $75 per tour. And if I was fast enough, I could get through 4, maybe 5 tours a day. It's a pretty broad range, but I calculated I could make between $112 and $375 per day. To put that into perspective, if I was able to get through enough people in a day, I'd be paid the equivalent of about $45 per hour. My boss went on. Now, you won't be taking the guests the whole way, he said. Halfway through, there's another guide who will take over. You just hand them off and head back for the next group. A quarter pay for half the work. Way too much to say no to. And so I didn't. My first day started earlier than I had woken up in months. The sky was still a deep navy when I pulled into the gravel lot. My breath fogged in the cold, the air smelling faintly of rain and cedar. The trailer door was open again, light spiraling out onto the dirt. Inside, the man from the interview was at the desk, head down over a folder. Without looking up, he slid an envelope across to me. I opened it. It was just a map of my route. He explained it to me, but he never looked me in the eyes. He spoke quickly, like he dreaded the entire conversation. Behind the route was a single sheet of paper with a typed list of names. 10 in all. Today's first group, it was a pretty diverse spread. Some couples, some young, some old. I jerked my head up as my boss dropped something heavy on the desk in front of me. A worn, sackcloth bag tied with a string, like something out of a movie. He told me I'd need it. I loosened the string and peeked inside. Coins. Not the shiny kind you dump into a vending machine. These were dull, heavy discs with worn edges and a faint greenish patina. The faces stamped on them were unfamiliar. The lettering in some alphabet I didn't recognize. They're for the river, he said flatly. I thought he was joking. Some touristy tradition for good luck, but the way he said it, eyes still down, voice tight, made me think twice about asking. Don't lose them. I nodded, still unsure if this was a weird hazing ritual or if I'd signed on for something I didn't fully understand. Outside, the sky was bleeding into a pale gray, and I could hear voices gathering in the lot. My first group, chatting and laughing as they waited. I stuffed the map, the list, and the bag of coins into my pack and stepped out to meet them. I put on my best retail smile and greeted them like I was thrilled to be there. They smiled back, some with polite nods, others with that eager spark to risk it when they've got a camera ready and nowhere else to be. We started along the trail, the dirt path winding through tall pines that whispered in the breeze. Somewhere off to the left, a woodpecker worked away at a trunk. I spotted a flash of blue, a jay darting between branches, and pointed it out like it was part of the official program. I walked them through the first landmarks. Echo Point, a rock outcropping where a sound bounced back in a strange, delayed way. The split oak, an ancient tree with a lightning scar splitting its trunk clean in two. The Devil's Step, a shallow stone shelf where the river narrowed into a fast white ribbon. I recited the facts from a script in a bright, practiced tone, throwing in the occasional chuckle, nodding like I'd told these same tidbits 1,000 times but still found them fascinating. I was quite proud of myself for the act I was putting on. On the surface, it was just another nature walk, but in my pack, I could feel the weight of that sackcloth bag thumping against my side with every step. And then, just as the sun was beginning to come back down, it was time for the main attraction. I led them down the last slope where the trees gave way to bare rock. The entrance to Blackmouth yawned ahead of us, low and wide, like a mouth set in a permanent sneer. Inside, the temperature dropped 10 degrees in an instant. My voice echoed faintly against the walls as I launched into the script about the cave's geology, how the limestone had been carved over millennia. We rounded a bend and the main attraction came into view, a wide, slow-moving river cutting right through the heart of the cave. Its surface was black and glossy, reflecting the dim yellow from the string of safety lamps bolted into the rock. The sound was steady but strangely muted, like the water was moving under a layer of glass. "This is the Blackmouth River," I told them, smiling like a proud host. "It runs underground for nearly 6 miles before resurfacing in a nearby valley. Local legend says no one has ever swam the full length and come out the other side." A couple of people laughed softly. The rest leaned over the railing to snap photos. We followed the narrow walkway that hugged the wall of the cave, the river sliding silently beside us. The lamps overhead gave off a weak yellow light, just enough to paint the wet rocks in streaks. Up ahead, the path widened into a stone platform jutting out from the water. This was where I was supposed to give the final part of the speech. The bit about the river's depth, the sediment, the wildlife, before turning everyone over to the other guide. I was halfway through my line about freshwater crabs when I saw him. He stood on the far side of the platform, where the light didn't quite reach. He was tall, and he wore a heavy coat with a wide-brimmed hat shadowing his face. Behind him, tethered to the stone, was a boat, if you could call it that. It wasn't like the park's rafts or canoes. This thing was narrow and low to the water. The woods so dark it almost looked black. An oar lay across the seats, the handle worn smooth, the blade stained as though it had been in the river for decades. I figured he was just going for that old-timey look, something for the tourists. Maybe he'd get them to pose for photos before the ride back. Still, the dripping hem of his coat caught my eye. It hung heavy, sodden, as if he'd just stepped out of the water instead of down from the trail. He raised one gloved hand, palm up. I remembered the sackcloth bag in my pack, the one my boss had told me was for the river. I slipped it from my shoulder and crossed the platform, forcing a friendly nod. "Guess you were taking them the rest of the way," I said. He didn't answer, just took the bag in a slow, deliberate motion before stepping back toward the boat. I was uneasy. The guy gave me the creeps, but my boss had warned me about this. This was normal. This was part of the job. I turned back to the group and gestured toward him like this was just another attraction. "All right, folks, this is where you'll head out with the river guide. He'll get you to the turnaround point and bring you back safe and sound." They didn't ask questions. Nobody hesitated. They filed toward him in neat pairs, stepping onto the platform with quiet, practiced movements, as if they'd already been told what to do. One by one they climbed into the boat. It rocked slightly with each step, but the water around it stayed perfectly still. No ripples, no sound. Halfway through loading, I glanced down at my list and froze. One of the names had a thick black line drawn through it. I didn't remember seeing that before. When I looked back up, there was one less person in line. I scanned the group. 10 names. But now only 9 faces. My mouth went dry. The ferryman's hat tilted up just enough for me to see the shadow of his jaw. Pale and sharp, his hand rested on the oar, still as stone. "Everything all right?" one of the guests asked, her voice startling me. I forced a smile. Yeah, just making sure everyone's on board. The boat pushed off, gliding into the black water. The guests sat silent and straight-backed, their faces dimming until they were swallowed by the dark. I turned and began my walk back, glancing sporadically at the list of guests. One name crossed out, then 3, then 8, then 10. Every name. By the time I reached the bend in the cave, the paper was trembling in my hand. 10 names. Every one now slashed through with that same thick black line. I stopped and listened. The cave was dead silent. No water, no echoes, nothing. It was like someone had muted the world. Then, from somewhere deep in the darkness behind me, I heard the slow, deliberate sound of an oar dripping into water. One stroke, then another, getting closer. I didn't look back. I folded the list, shoved it into my pocket, and forced my legs to move until the dim daylight from the cave mouth came into view. The rest of the day blurred together. I kept running tours, trying to put on the same cheery face as before, but my stomach stayed knotted. None of the people from that first group ever came back down the trail. I told myself they'd taken a different exit, that maybe the other guide had his own drop-off point. But by closing time, the lot was nearly empty. No cars matching theirs. No chatter from hikers packing up for the day. 4 groups that day. 32 total guests, and not one of them had made their way back. The park felt hollow. Just the sound of the wind in the pines and the faint smell of river water sticking to me like glue. It made me uneasy. I headed back to the trailer to clock out. The door was propped open again, light spilling onto the dirt. My boss was inside at the desk, a stack of papers in front of him, pen scratching slowly across the top sheet. He didn't look up when I stepped in. "Hey," I said, keeping my tone light. "Weird question, but where do the groups go after I hand them over? I didn't see anyone come back." He didn't look up. "They finished the route." "Yeah, but I mean, does it loop back to the parking lot? I never saw them." A pause, just long enough to notice. "They don't come back this way. How was the river today?" I forced a small laugh. Like his answer had cleared it all up. "Fine, yeah. The river was fine." It wasn't, but I let myself believe it anyway. Maybe there really was another trail. Maybe there was a shuttle back to the lot I just hadn't seen. I signed out, muttered a "see you tomorrow," and stepped out into the cooling air. The sun was gone behind the trees, and the path to my car felt longer than usual. Every step carried that faint, damp smell from the cave, clinging stubbornly to my clothes. When I got home, the first thing I noticed was the smell. It was stronger than even my clothes. Coming from my kitchen. Inside the lights were off, but on my kitchen table sat a neat stack of coins. Dull, heavy coins with the now familiar faces and languages. I didn't move at first. Just stood there in the dark staring at the stack. Droplets clung to them, catching what little light leaked in from the street. A thin ring of moisture had already formed on the table around them, slowly spreading. 32 guests, 64 coins given to me that morning, and now 16 in my kitchen waiting for me. My quarter share for that day. The old man in the trailer had just been the middleman. That much was obvious now. Whoever, whatever, had left these in my kitchen was the one I really worked for, and judging by the smell rolling off the stack, thick and cold and heavy in the air, they'd already been in the river.